Technology continues to play an increasingly critical role in global development. Here in Nigeria, the outgone year saw a massive increase in the number of Nigerian-owned startups, which attracted patronage from some of the biggest technology firms in the world. A good number of those have gained so much value that there are a few that have become unicorns, that is startups with a value of $1 billion or more. Joining us now to have a conversation on this is Iyinoluwa Aboyeji, co-founder of Flutterwave and Andela, and is also the general partner of the Funds for Africa's Future. You're welcome, Iyinoluwa.
Thank you so much.
Studio. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year
Happy
to
New
you.
Year to you. Yeah.
The last time I interviewed you was your birthday.
Yes,
Yes.
it was such an amazing interview.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, you know that this year you were listed among the 22 Nigerians that are going to be reshaping 2022.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's a lot of pressure, but
yeah,
we'll see.
No, but tell us about it.
Yes.
How are you going to be reshaping? But of course, pick it from an assessment of 2021, which was, if you like, a tech year, coming back from the pandemic, and then everything basically happened digitally. Give us an assessment of 2021 and then project into 2022.
You see, 2021 was a landmark year for our industry, right? So, we went into 2020 very, very worried, right? Because at that time, a lot of investors were pulling back from tech, and there was a general decline in investment in the industry. And we needed to keep the industry alive, so we worked really hard to keep financing from angel investors and local investors. And in 2021, we saw this incredible landmark increase in funding from all over the world, where, Africa went up to about $4.6 billion in capital raise, and Nigeria, despite all the news and everything, went up to $1.4 billion in capital raise. So it was an incredible year for us. But you see, a lot of that money was going, to focus on quite a number of things. So, the biggest of which was Fintech, right? Really exploring the changes that had happened in our economy because of COVID. So if you look at the impact of COVID on the financial sector, a lot of banks having to shut down their branches because of COVID issues, a lot of lack of access to financial services as a result. The need for a lot of things to go online because there wasn't that kind of smooth logistics, and really an explosion of transactions going online, and a lot of fintech resulted from those changes, and so there was a lot of massive growth in the industry, which kind of spilled over to this massive funding environment that we had. So it's very kind of a fintech thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I think in the new year, what I'm super excited about is how we spread that joy to more parts of the economy, right? How do we, now that technology has a leading position as an industry, and there's all these infrastructure and all these platforms that they now have the capital to build, I'm really excited to see how the industry decides to come together and start to solve some fundamental problems that, quite frankly, without which the broader fintech revolution might not continue to be the way it is. So, for example, education, right? We do have to pay a lot of attention to where the talent that's going to absorb this capital and make it productive is going to come from. So, we got to build more software developers. We got to, train more product managers. We got to train more digital marketers. We got to train more. So I think that's going to be a big area for us. I think healthcare is going to be another big area. Healthcare is definitely one of the sectors that has kind of spiraled a lot of investment through the pandemic, but there's a need to kind of up-level and use more data and quantify itself and things like that. There's some really interesting startups that are doing some really interesting stuff in this space, but I'm very grateful to see what happens next. And, funnily enough, digital infrastructure, we're going to need more internet.
Right.
With Omicron back, right? Who knows whether we're going to be able to gather again. We're going to need more server space. There's going to be a lot more digitization. The whole trend that COVID kind of turbocharged, not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how we kind of break free of fintech alone, which is great. But then look at other areas of the economy where perhaps we can impact on more people's lives.
When we're talking about projection for 2022, Nigeria's tech space, I mean, you know that federal government just launched that new 5G policy,
Yes,
which took them
yes.
about, I believe, 2 years to even implement. Yeah. And then we also have some techpreneurs, like you guys, have projected that there will be like more, cybersecurity or even climate innovations. What do you make of that?
I think those are all amazing areas of progress. Like I just think on the long tail, when you really zoom from a 40,000 foot square view, right? You realize that Nigeria cannot survive without technology, right? We just, so many people, so many challenges, so many opportunities, but at the scale you need to be able to capture these opportunities, you just need to deploy technology. Otherwise, it's not possible for you to do it, I can't imagine any bank. I was joking with my dad the other day, he's got a church. This church has about 4,500 branches, right?
Branches?
The banking industry in Nigeria is 5,000 branches, right? So I'm like, look, you're kind of, and that's just one church. So I don't even think I don't think that church is the biggest church. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you've got more churches than banks, then you've got a real problem. But how do you go from that, right? Agent banking, which was a lot of what we saw last year, right? So now you've got over 1 million agent bankers all over, and that can kind of fill the demand of servicing 200 million people. I think opportunities like 5G and these other technological advancements may mean that we can actually continue to serve people in more interesting ways, right? How can we give people more content? How can we make sure, like for example, when you get on the bus, even if it's a downfall bus, you can use your card to make payment. How can we keep our streets safe? Because with technologies like 5G, for example, we can kind of do more facial detection and biometric detection. And that can enable us to know who's committing crimes on the street and identify them and do the needful to make sure we can apprehend them and make sure they face justice. So I'm excited for the applications of technologies. I'm not that excited about the technologies themselves, but I'm excited for the application of technologies.
Okay, what sort of role do you think Lagos as a hub plays in your assessment of the development that we are witnessing? I mean, a lot of people these days now describe Lagos as the Silicon Valley, of the continent. I don't know if you agree with that, but we know, of course, that last year, the Lagos state government promised to build the biggest tech hub in Yaba. And you did mention that, yes, when we have the space, we need the personnel, to fill in. Where do you think the government should come in, and what sort of rules, rather than the announcements and the brick and mortar kind of intervention, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with the government's own program. I think they're doing their best. They're trying. But I think the opportunity, if you ask me, is in talent, right? If you ask me, like, where can government really, really play a big role? It's how do we ensure that our university students, whether or not they're studying computer science, have a laptop, right? Like, I just can't see a world where somebody who goes to university for 4 years and doesn't use a laptop is going to be able to come out and function in any industry, not to talk of the tech industry, right? And there was a time we used to do this type of stuff, so it's not like this is all new to us. But it's like now is the time for us to now deeply invest in education, in talent, and helping our people. And Lagos has universities they can do, right? That's right. We need to start thinking about the next generation of vocational, right? Some of our companies need IT technicians. Some of them perhaps run service businesses that need mechanics and hardware technicians and so on and so forth. Who's going to train those people? Somebody's going to train those people, right? If we give a laptop to everybody, every child in a university in Lagos, right, or across the country, who's going to repair those laptops, right? Somebody's got to do that.
Right.
So I'm just saying, like, the government has to really just be very focused. But then there's also policy, right? So after outside talent, there's policy, right? It's not about the brick and mortar. It's not about Lagos is the Silicon Valley of Africa because it has the most talent. It's not because of anything. But then also, in many ways, like, we're way ahead of other countries in terms of policy, but we could move even faster. One of the things I'm really excited for 2022, and it does sound like the president did allude to in his speech, is the Nigerian startup bill. Right? So the Nigerian startup bill is the best crafted startup bill on the continent.
Wow.
Well, it's still in draft for us, but we're hoping that the House of Representatives and the Senate will pass it this year. And the idea there is basically, let's have a policy basis, let's have a legal basis for this development that we want to see, right? If we want to go from 1.4 billion to 10 billion to 100 billion, right, over the next 20 years, 25 years, let's put in place the policy building blocks for that. So that means, like, no knee-jerk regulation, because no one's going to invest in a society where, today, you're banned, next tomorrow you're not, So these are flip-flops, right? These are the things that I think we focus on, right, as opposed to big build. We can build big buildings, These guys have money. They can build all the infrastructure they need, right? I'm not saying they don't need support to do it, but I'm just saying that that's less important than a policy environment that's amazing, an education system that's exceptional.
That's amazing. You're talking about talent, and you always talk about the use of technology in improving people's lives. But before I go, I'd love your analysis on that quest. I want to know what you're doing now with that. But before we do, we'll have to go on a really quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue on the conversation. So please stay with us. Studio with us is Iyinoluwa Aboyeji, founder of Flutterwave and Andela, and general partner of the Funds for Africa's Future. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you.
Now, before we went on a break, you were talking about talent being the biggest source of our, the next big thing for technology. And you always talk about the use of technology in improving people's lives. I'd love for you to talk about your Funds for Africa Future.
Yes.
What is it about? Where has it gone? What have you done with it so far?
Yeah, so the Fund for Africa's Future, really, I mean, we started it in the middle of the pandemic, which was absolute wrong time to start a technology company. Thinking about it at that time, but now we've kind of been vindicated by this 2021 funding bazaar. And what we did was we started to fund innovators as early as we could, basically supporting them with capital, coaching, and community to help them turn what we call Africa's biggest challenges into global business opportunities. And it patterns after kind of the work I've done my whole life. So you look at, Andela, where with Andela, we took a global youth unemployment problem and turned it into a global remote work opportunity, which has now completely transformed a lot of people's lives. And you look at Flutterwave, we took a big challenge with financial connectivity with the rest of the world. If you were doing business as a fashion designer in Lagos, you couldn't sell to the US. No one could pay you. And then took that problem and turned it to an opportunity to connect African merchants to and African businesses and individuals to the rest of the world. And so we continue to find businesses along those lines. We invest extremely, very deeply in those businesses, and we watch them grow into global giants.
Those are non-fintech sort of stuff.
Well, yes, we're not fintech agnostic. In fact, we try to stay out of fintech if we can. But a good example of a business that we supported super early. There's a business called Move. If you've ever get in an Uber car, there's a business called Move, and what Move basically does is it works very closely with drivers that drive on Uber to help them own their first car. Right?
Wow.
So rather than them, because a lot of people who drive on Uber can't own their car, they can't afford a car.
That's right.
So we give them a car, more than a big chunk of them are women. That's why.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, the reason you have
Love
women
it.
Uber drivers.
Amazing.
And then
It's like drive to own.
drive to own, exactly. So they drive on the Uber network, and then that's how they pay off the car, and they get a decent living as well. And in 30 months, so they have the car.
Sounds so brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, things like that, and that business has scaled massively. Started in the middle of the pandemic. The co-founders are exceptional people. Scaled that business, and now it's a huge business. And so we look for businesses like that. Now, for us, where we're going is we really see a really deep need to leverage technology to change people's lives. I mean, for us, that's the core of what we do.
Okay.
So this year again, we're going to identify the best entrepreneurs on the continent, around the world, that are building technology that can solve our biggest challenges and turn those challenges into global business opportunities.
Iyinoluwa, we want to thank you very much for this perspective that you've shared with us today, and we hope that 2022 will be a tech-productive year.
I hope so,
for
too.
Nigeria and for the entire
Absolutely.
African continent.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you so
joining
much.
us on
Thank
the
you,
Voyage.
Iyinoluwa Aboyeji.